Hi there, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's February 5th. Today we celebrate the savior of the Royal Botanic Garden Kew and the fir tree described by Meriwether Lewis as fir number 5. We'll learn about the man who discovered a plant that was called the ugliest yet most botanically magnificent plant in the world by Joseph Dalton Hooker. And we celebrate the 124th birthday of the founding of the New England Botanic Club, as well as the landscape architect who helped create the new American garden. Today's Unearthed Words feature poems about February. And we grow that garden library with a book that reveals the ingenuity of animal survival in and out of our gardens. I'll talk about a very nice gift for a gardener, something that will likely become an heirloom in your garden family. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of the Happy Huntsman's Tree. But first, let's catch up on a few recent events. First up is a post that was written by Nancy Zerlog in the Detroit News. She had a chance to try Burpee's new turnip, Silky Sweet. The turnip is a salad turnip. It can be eaten raw, just like an apple. And the taste is moist, crisp, and slightly sweet, with a delightful hint of mustard. Nancy wrote, "Now, I'm a great fan of fresh vegetables, especially crunchy stuff that I can eat in salads, use with dips, or just snack on with a sprinkling of sea salt. So, because it was about lunchtime, I washed up these little guys, sliced them thin, no peeling needed, and ate them fresh out of the box, and I loved them. In fact, I loved them so much, I'm planning to grow them this spring." And again, this turnip is Burpee's, and it's called Silky Sweet. You can check out this post for yourself by searching for the word turnip in the Facebook group for the show. Next up was a post that was featured in House and Garden. It featured the magnificent Terrace garden in Bruges, and it was created by Piet Blanckaert. Piet says, "Small gardens are a puzzle in 3D. You need all the pieces, big and small, and every centimeter counts. You need less of everything, so you can choose top quality materials." This sweet little terrace garden is an inspiration, and I love what it says about what Piet did to create the illusion of a larger space. He designed a long, narrow canal with small water spouts along its length for the soothing sound of moving water. And that little canal runs along the perimeter of this sweet, adorable courtyard space. And I thought it was an ingenious idea. This post is chock full of good ideas, just like the one about the water canal. So read through it and then read through it thoroughly one more time with a pen and notepaper. There's just so much to take in. If you'd like to track down this post in the Facebook group for the show, just search for the word terrace, and this post will pop right up. Now, if you'd like to join the listener community, the free Facebook group for the show, you're in luck, because all you have to do is the next time you're on Facebook, just head on up to the search bar, type in the Daily Gardener Community, and request to join. Then I'll get a notification on my phone, and I'll admit you into the group. It's just that simple. All week long, I'm busy curating good garden articles to share with you on the podcast, and everything I share on the show makes it into the Facebook group for the show as well. It'll all show up in your Facebook feed, and it'll be intermingled among all of the posts from your friends and family. You'll love it. And best of all, there's no spam, just good garden articles. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the British botanist, pomologist, pioneer orchidologist, and flower show organizer John Lindley, who was born on this day in 1799. Lindley's dad was a nurseryman, and he ran a commercial nursery in England. Despite his array of botanical talents and knowledge, the family was constantly under financial stress. Growing up in his father's nursery helped Lindley acquire the knowledge necessary to land his first job as a seed merchant. This position led to a chain of events that would shape Lindley's life. First, he met the botanist William Jackson Hooker, and second, Hooker introduced him to Sir Joseph Banks. Lindley worked as an assistant in the Banks Herbarium. After Banks died, when the fate of Kew Gardens hung in the balance, it was Lindley who recommended that the gardens belong to the people and that they should become the botanical headquarters for England. The government rejected Lindley's proposal and decided to close the garden. But on February 11th, 1840, Lindley ingeniously demanded that the issue be brought before Parliament. His advocacy brought the matter to the people, and the garden-loving public of England was not about to lose the Royal Botanic. And so Lindley saved Kew Gardens, and William Hooker was chosen as the new director. From his humble beginnings to his incredible standing in English botanical history, Lindley is fondly remembered for so many accomplishments. For 43 years, Lindley served as the secretary to the Royal Horticultural Society, which is why the RHS Library is called the Lindley Library. And there are over 200 plant species named for Lindley. Lindley did love his plants. He once told a friend, the botanist Ludwig Reichenbach, "I'm a dandy in my herbarium." Without question, Lindley's favorite plants were orchids. Before Lindley, not much was known about orchids. Thanks to Lindley, the genus Orchidaceae was shortened to orchid, which is much more friendly to pronounce. And when he died, Lindley's massive orchid collection was moved to a new home at Kew. And Reichenbach wrote a touching tribute for Lindley after he died. He wrote, "We cannot tell how long science will be pursued, but we may affirm that so long as a knowledge of plants is considered necessary, so long will Lindley's name be remembered with gratitude." And on this day in 1806, Meriwether Lewis described a tree in his journal that he called Fir Number 5. The tree in question was the Douglas fir. Later on February 9th, Lewis added more details about the fir in his journal, and he even drew a sketch of the distinctive bract of the cone. On their way back across the northern Rocky Mountains of Idaho and Montana, Lewis and Clark would encounter the inland variation of the species, the Rocky Mountain Douglas fir. The Douglas fir gets its name from the botanist David Douglas, who was the first to grow the tree in England successfully. When Douglas met an early death, his friend and teacher, the botanist John Goldie, planted a Douglas fir next to his house to remember his young friend. The lifespan of a Douglas fir tree ranges from 500 to 1,000 years, and Douglas firs are very large trees. They're too big for residential landscaping. They can reach heights of 60 feet tall and up to 25 feet wide. In the wild, they sometimes reach over 200 feet tall. The bark of a Douglas fir gets thicker over time, and that dense layer of bark enables the tree to survive forest fires with only some blackened bark. And today is the birthday of the Austrian botanist and explorer Friedrich Wellwich, who was born on this day in 1806. Although he hailed from Austria, Wellwich found a second home in the country of Portugal, where he served as the director of the Botanic Gardens in Lisbon. Wellwich had some amazing experiences during his lifetime, but the pinnacle was clearly the day that he discovered the Welwitschia mirabilis. Mirabilis refers to its unusual form. The backstory is that Portugal had sent him to Africa to collect plants, which he did for 7 years. But in 1860, Wellwich discovered a strange-looking plant. It's actually a tree, a conifer, and a gymnosperm in terms of botanical classification. The Africans called it Mr. Big. When Wellwich discovered this unique plant, which can live for more than 1,500 years and bears only 2 leaves in its entire life cycle, he was so astonished that he could, quote, do nothing but kneel down and gaze at it, half in fear lest a touch should prove it a figment of the imagination. To give you an idea of what it looks like, imagine a 2-tentacled octopus with very long arms and a red floral bouquet for a head, and you have the Welwitschia mirabilis. Welwitchia's 2 leaves grow continually throughout the life of the plant, and the pair of leaves are broad, leathery, and belt-shaped. Incredibly, some specimens tested with carbon-14 are over 2,000 years old. When I was researching Wellwich, I ran across a spectacular photo of him seated behind a large Welwitschia mirabilis. He's wearing a pith helmet, and the plant's leaves are clearly many times longer than Wellwich's arms and legs, which are mostly obscured by the plant. I love this picture, and I bet he did too. And in 1862, Joseph Dalton Hooker described the Welwitschia mirabilis in the Gardener's Chronicle. He said it was the ugliest yet botanically most magnificent plant in the world among centuries-old plants. It really is something else, and if you get a chance, you should Google it. And today we wish a happy birthday to the New England Botanical Club. It was on this day in 1896 that the club was founded by 7 professional and 10 amateur botanists. The club was established to study New England and alpine flora, and dues were set at $2 a year. The late 1800s ushered in several scientific organizations like the American Philosophical Society, the Massachusetts Horticultural Society, the Massachusetts Audubon Society, and the American Association for the Advancement of Science. What distinguished the New England Botanical Club was the fact that it welcomed amateurs as well as professionals. The early meetings were held in members' homes. Charles Sprague Sargent of the Arnold Arboretum was reputed to be a wonderful host. The club began as a gentleman's club. It would not officially admit women until 1968. Focused on botany, the group went on regular field trips, and they published a scholarly journal called Rhodora. The group was looking for a one-word title, and they held a vote. And there were many options like Rhodora, Oxia, Watsonia, but the name Rhodora was picked. Today, the New England Botanical Club is a nonprofit organization that promotes the study of plants of North America, but especially the flora of New England and adjacent areas. And today is the birthday of the influential landscape architect and author James Van Sweden, who was born on this day in 1935. Van Sweden was an early pioneer in developing a new look and feel for American landscapes. His style was called the New American Garden. Signature elements of the New American Garden are broad sweeps of flowering perennials and wild grasses. In 1975, Van Sweden partnered with Wolfgang Uma, and together they started their firm, now known as Uma Van Sweden, or OVS. Many gardeners remember that it was James who created a purple meadow for Oprah on her South Bend, Indiana estate. In his book, Architecture in the Garden, Van Sweden wrote, "As I pulled up to Oprah Winfrey's front door for the first time, my immediate impression was that her house was divorced from its setting. Built in an elegant French chateau style, the house was visibly uncomfortable with the matter-of-fact Midwestern farmland that surrounded it. Nothing had been done to ease the transition from one to the other. The house and the site weren't talking. Over the next 4 years, we worked together to create an architectural context around the house, including newly installed terraces and walls. The materials we selected, brick framed with limestone, echo the house, yet this architecture also conformed to the surrounding countryside, adopting its long horizontal lines. In this way, we quite literally pulled out into the site." Van Sweden's books include The Artful Garden, Creative Inspiration for Landscape Design from 2011, Architecture in the Garden from 2003, and Gardening with Nature from 1997. Now, these are all fabulous books, and I recommend scooping them all up because for all 3 of these books, used copies are the name of the game. I've put a link to all of them in today's show notes, and you can get a copy of James Van Sweden's books and support the show using the Amazon links in today's show notes for under $5 a piece. Now that's a deal. In Unearthed Words, today's Unearthed Words are about the month of February. This first one's from Neely Turner, who was the state entomologist and vice director at the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station. Probably more pests can be controlled in an armchair in front of a February fire with a garden notebook and a seed catalog than can ever be knocked out in hand-to-hand combat in the garden. And here's one from the American Romantic poet William Cullen Bryant. It's called A Winter Peace. Come when the rains have glazed the snow and clothed the trees with ice, while the slant sun of February pours into the bowers a flood of light. Approach, the encrusted surface shall upbear thy steps, and the broad arching portals of the grove welcome thy entering. And finally, this one's from the American lyric poet Sarah Teasdale. It's called February Twilight. I stood beside a hill, smooth with new-laid snow. A single star looked out from the cold evening glow. There was no other creature that I saw what I could see. I stood and watched the evening star as long as it watched me. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, Winter World by Bernd Heinrich. The subtitle to this book is The Ingenuity of Animal Survival. It came out in 2009, and it's an oldie but goodie. It was a New York Times bestseller. The New York Times praised him, saying Heinrich has the rare ability to embed dense scientific explanations within graceful, light-footed nature writing. We talk a lot about incorporating wildlife into our gardens on the show. And if we're serious about doing that, we need to better understand them. Heinrich does a wonderful job of showing us how the animal kingdom relies on some staggering evolutionary innovations to survive winter. And unlike us, they're not able to alter their environment to survive winter. They've had to learn to adapt, and they can handle an amazing range of conditions. And I loved this quote from the introduction to Heinrich's book. He wrote, "Each species experiences the world differently, and many species have capacities far different from ours. They can show us the unimaginable." If you've ever wondered what happens to creatures when the temperature drops, this book is for you. There's a lot of life happening underneath the snow. You can get a used copy of Winter World by Bernd Heinrich and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for under $9. And here's today's great gift for a gardener. It's the Okatsuna Precision Hedge Shears. They're $62.25. Why so much for a pair of shears? Because they're just that good. If you have them, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, be ready to fall in love. These short garden shears are used by professional gardeners throughout Japan. This is the model that's about 21 inches long with a blade length of 6.9 inches. The handles are made of slick Japanese white oak. And if you get them, you'll discover they're about to become one of your most prized garden tools. I was chuckling the other day when I ran across a post on Twitter from a well-known gardener who had just gotten his Okatsuna hedge shears, and he was in love. Reminds me of that old saying, right tool for the right job. And these Okatsuna hedge shears are certainly the right tool. You can get yourself the Okatsuna hedge shears and support the show using the link in today's show notes for $62.25. And hey, one of the handles is red and the other is white. So if you're looking for a Valentine's gift or you need to tell someone something that you're looking for, this would be a great Valentine's Day present for you or for someone you love. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1917, the Happy Huntsman's tree was planted. It stands beside the Harrington family crypt. The Happy Huntsman's tree is an oak tree that honors the 8th Earl of Harrington, Charles Augustus Stanhope, who died on this day at the age of 73. When he died, Charles was one of the largest landowners in England, with estates totaling over 13,000 acres. Charles was the first business person to open a store in London under his own name, selling fruit from his garden. The store closed after a few seasons. Gardeners would be delighted by his home at Elvaston Castle, which was settled among the most magnificent topiary. Trees, shrubs, and hedges were fashioned into men, animals, pyramids, and fans. Even though one of his arms was useless, Charles was an active person. He was one of the pioneers of polo in England, and he even played as an old man. Vanity Fair published a caricature of him sitting on his horse with his pot belly and white flowing beard, playing polo. And he was an avid huntsman, and he was master of the South Knot hunt for over 30 years. During the hunting season, he hunted 6 days a week. His obituary said that he never missed a hunt unless he happened to be laid up with broken bones from a fall. At Elvaston Castle, there was a little workshop where Charles liked to tinker with projects. He was badly burned while working there. He was making a picture frame, and he accidentally bumped his left hand against the pipe of a stove. After treating it with oil, he developed blood poisoning and died. Charles left specific instructions in his will that upon his death, his hounds should be let out to hunt. Family lore says that when Charles was buried, on this day, the hounds bounded into the graveyard, gathered around the oak tree near the family crypt, and they would not leave, and they could not be coaxed away. The tree was dubbed the Happy Huntsman's Tree. There's a small plaque beneath it, and today it still stands in the graveyard of St. Bartholomew's Church in Derbyshire. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener, and remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.